This is Locked On Ole Miss, and we are instantly overreacting to the college football recruiting weekend that was for the Ole Miss Rebels. We'll talk about Chris Paul, we'll talk about Jordan Watkins, and we'll talk about Tahveon Nicholson, who committed to Ole Miss this afternoon from Illinois. We're going to do that. We're going to just mix it up in the chat a little bit as well. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Really big day for Ole Miss sports. I thought last weekend was about as good of news as Ole Miss can get, and then this weekend happened. And we will start with the fact that Ole Miss just landed the number one transfer portal linebacker out there in Chris Paul. This is a player that I talked about on this show about a week ago that would be an important position of need for Ole Miss football, and he's kind of the perfect fit for the Pete Golding defense. And this is a major, major deal. Picture Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, who did a fantastic job, ended up playing a lot of football for Ole Miss this year. Picture a plus version of that, and you have what Pooh Paul is. Good player, played at Arkansas for 2 years, was a Butkus watch list player. He came in, official visit, committed on Friday night. This was the player that I knew was coming into that Friday night and the one that I tweeted about. I'm very excited about the direction that Chris Paul brings to the Ole Miss defense. And, you know, it's really interesting that Ole Miss football is kind of big game hunting right now. Now, Ole Miss isn't going to get all of these players, okay? They're not. But they've got the number one player in the transfer portal linebacker committed. They've got a very good defensive back in Tahveon Nicholson that we'll talk about that just a little bit. That happened really late in the day, and we're all kind of playing catch up on that one. And then, you know, just look at good news and good vibes in the weekend. Jordan Watkins, who was a machine in the middle of the field and Mr. Reliable in Ole Miss's offense, returning to school for one more year. You have Deion Smith coming. He was the one that committed last weekend. Big, super huge moment. We're talking about Trey Harris. I have it on good authority that he's about 70% coming back right now. And, you know, Dayton Wade's going pro, and Caden Prieskorn, he's an older player that might go pro, but yeah, I can see Ole Miss making an attempt to get him as well. That's the one I know pretty much the least about. But this weekend was a very good weekend for Ole Miss football. There's no way to get around that. It is a fantastic weekend. And Chris Paul at that middle linebacker position, okay? Let's look at middle linebacker at Ole Miss. I forget names from time to time, so if I get it wrong, I apologize. But take Chris Paul starting, moves in at linebacker. You have Suntarian Perkins coming back. You have TJ Dudley going to be eligible for the first time. We don't know about Coleman. He might have another year and come back as well. And then you have the number one JUCO linebacker at a Jones County Community College. His name's honestly just blew out of my mind real quick, but he's coming as well. Collins, I think is his last name. Really good football players at a position of need for Ole Miss football. Chris Paul being essentially on the Ole Miss team next year, a major, major development for Ole Miss football. Ole Miss right now has the number 5 defensive line class in the country, according to like rivals.com. Some would say I think it's the best one personally, but I'm biased. I understand that. Linebacker, they're doing a fantastic job of that. And they're starting to work on the back end of the defense as well with Tahveon Nicholson, the cornerback out of Illinois. He, I think the defensive backs coach at Ole Miss either recruited him or something like that to Illinois. There's a relationship prior. That's how that happened. He comes down to Oxford, Mississippi. From what I understand, okay, and like I said, this was kind of a crash course on this kid to start with, is he does pretty well in man coverage. And last year against Georgia, Ole Miss could not play man coverage against Georgia. So Ole Miss needed to upgrade at man coverage. Think about this. When the Alabama defense is humming, when everything is going well, they're playing a lot of two-man. And they use that two-man and just completely vice grip, shut you down. And two-man is two safeties with everybody playing man-to-man underneath. But if you can't play man-to-man, if you are at a point where you can't match up on the outside, you're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be a problem. That happened against Georgia. That happened against LSU. Tahveon Nicholson potentially helps alleviate that. You look at what happened last year, and I'm a huge proponent of recruiting players like John Saunders. I think he was a really good player. Trey Harris, a really good player. If you can get those players, you sign those players. But this year it's different. This year it's absolutely really different. And Ole Miss is going after starters on Power 5 SEC teams. That is a big deal. We're going to go through the chat in just a second. Also on there, be sure and put in the chat where you're watching the show from. I do want to know where you're commenting from, so get that in the chat as well. Now, there's 3 or 4 weeks left in this period. We still have to wait to see about Juice Wells, the number 1 wide receiver in the transfer portal. We still have to wait to see about Carter Smith, either the top or a top 1 or 2 tackle in the transfer portal. And there's other players that possibly we just don't know about. And then there's Walter Nolan, who is the number 1 player that has ever gotten into the transfer portal. And everybody's going to talk about what that is. And they're going to make assumptions. And, you know, Jerry Hamilton from 247, the Texas site, said Oregon and Ole Miss are the 2 schools that are in the league. And Walter Nolan is visiting Oregon, so that's halfway to make me think that Jerry Hamilton at least had some of his information correct. You're going to see other reports out there of other people going in it. Remember, this guy, Walter Nolan, is going to be recruited by absolutely everybody. Everybody's going to be bidding about that. Losing that battle is nothing to sneeze at all. But Ole Miss being in that battle, they should probably be proud of that. Because if Ole Miss can land Princely, Human Mielen, I'm going to mispronounce that name forever, at the number 1 defensive end potentially in the portal. If they can land Walter Nolan, the number 1 defensive tackle in the portal, they need to get some players on the interior offensive line. It looks like they're matriculating down that road as well. And safety-wise, you have Key Lawrence, who has visited already, and there's other safeties, including the guy from Clemson that's going to visit soon. Ole Miss is absolutely big game hunting. There is no way to get around it. They are big game hunting in this one. And Ole Miss is not going to get them all, but they're at least going to get one because they landed Chris Paul. So Ole Miss can move on to the next one. And they are absolutely going after the best of the best that the portal has to offer. It's almost a situation where it feels like Lane Kiffin is going all in this year. They know that Ole Miss is in position to really compete this year. 12-team playoff, the whole 9 yards. This is the year to compete. And it looks like if Ole Miss can land all that, and I've talked about this before, Ole Miss now becomes a major conversation piece to host a 12-team playoff game. Not just be in the 12-team playoff, host a 12-team playoff game in what would be the biggest football game Vaught-Hemingway Stadium has ever held. It would be absolutely massive. Oregon or Michigan or Ohio State or all of them could possibly be coming to Oxford, Mississippi. Absolutely massive game. Absolutely major game. And Ole Miss fans should be pretty excited and pretty ecstatic about that as a possibility. All right. We're going to go into the chat and take a few questions and comments with what is going on as well. Hope everybody is having a good day. This is going to be a shorter chat than usual because, my mom's in town. We're doing Christmas. I just wanted to get on board today and have a quick one because of all the good news that has happened in the last 24 hours. The thing that I started with was, what was the best news today? What's the piece of news that you were paying attention to? And then we have Charlie D saying Jordan Watkins returning. And that is an absolutely massive news. Massive piece of news. And even if you look at what happens with Deion Smith and you look at potentially Trey Harris coming back, you're having enough pieces coming back to the wide receiver room is going to be really, really good moving forward. Jackson Dart took a step this year. Quinshon Judkins took a step this year, even though his numbers aren't as good as they were last year. He had probably a more all-around year than he did the year before. So offensively, Ole Miss is in a position to compete. Everybody's going to worry about the offensive line. Give it time. There's all of this transfer portal window. There's the late transfer portal window. I think that Ole Miss is going to be fine. David Landrum asked, what about Harris? I have it on good authority that he's about 70% coming back. There's still 30% that he could go pro. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with what's going on, but I right now, I think he is going to be back. I mean, that's where the odds are. And Jackson Dart is just recruiting his tail off right now at quarterback. He's not acting like somebody that's not coming back. So I think we can all assume that he is. He probably just needs to go ahead and put the infographic out as well. Sam Aldridge said Arkansas linebacker. Yeah, Chris Paul, major player, best portal linebacker, really good football player that can go sideline to sideline, but has the weight behind him to be a little bit of a thumper as well. Jeff Ferguson said, hello, good evening from Jeff in Pontotoc, Mississippi. Good evening, Jeff. David Landrum getting Chris Paul is huge. He is indeed. We got the emoji signal as well. Now, every time that comes up, I have to check my Twitter to make sure nobody else is doing something. Juice Wells next. That is the rumor. Now, there's two players that Ole Miss fans should keep an eye on over the next 5 days. One is Juice Wells. All indications are he's having a fantastic visit. Most official visits are fantastic, by the way. But he apparently hit it off really well with Lane, so we'll see exactly how that goes as well. I like the two Juices picture, and Jackson Dart is very much involved in that recruitment. So we'll pay attention to exactly how that goes. And Carter Smith, the offensive tackle out of Indiana, he's visiting Ole Miss. I think it was David Johnson that said he's going straight from Ole Miss to Florida State, and he'll comment after it. I think it's a kind of a two-horse race. I have not a whole lot of information about that one. DJ doing the shark emoji. Old Rebel says we need a D and O lineman. They are working on that as well. Sam Aldridge says, I think it's looking better by the day. Eddie Simmons says bowling and balling. Burnside, chances we land him. I don't know. This is a problem that I think Ole Miss is going to have with Braylon Burnside. Ole Miss just got the number one JUCO player in junior college. He signed up to come. Ole Miss has Nareel White. Ole Miss has Jordan Watkins coming back. You have Aiden Williams already here. We know that Braylon Burnside likes to be here, okay? But this is what State's going to preach him. Why go there and sit on the bench? Why go there and play behind them when you can come here and dominate? That is going to be their sales pitch. That and negative recruiting the hell out of Ole Miss. But that is going to be the recruiting pitch. So I think Ole Miss, is where Burnside wants to be. But I think that pitch is going to come in. The official visit is going on this weekend with Mississippi State. So we'll probably know rumors will start coming out Monday or Tuesday because people that are around that in Mississippi State, they need good news. They knew that they have to crow a little bit. So we'll start to hear rumors at the end of this weekend as well. So we'll see what happens. Key Lawrence, how are we feeling? I think we feel pretty good. And it makes me, he visited on Tuesday. He hasn't committed yet. Everybody has different timetables on that. But the longer that goes on, the less likely it is to happen, if that makes sense. But I've heard good things. Listening from Grand Cayman, very nice. The Kentucky Fried Chicken on Grand Cayman is pretty awesome. And they have chickens just running wild out in front of KFC, and it's the funniest thing you're going to see. So check that out as well. Sam Aldridge, another season with Priestcorn would be huge. Yes, it absolutely would. Really, really good football player. It's a situation where I think it's just Does he want the money to come out of the collective? Can he boost his stock? All of that stuff. Pre-scoring, though, is very important to this team. James York, one of your everydayers. Thank you for being an everydayer. We try to do a decent job. We try to make following Ole Miss sports fun. Apparently, some people get upset whenever you try to make Ole Miss sports fun, and there's a couple of directions you can take that. David Landrum says, agree, Sam. Michael Mosley's from Brandon, Mississippi. Sam Aldridge is from Citrus County, Florida. Hey, Sam, name the town in Citrus County. I'm in Polk County. How close is that to Polk County? PTG Brandon is from Teoc, Mississippi. That's, it's not often that I hear a town in Mississippi that I just don't know. That is one of them. Brian Joyner's watching from an oil rig in the Gulf. That's awesome. Congratulations for that. Joe King is watching from Fulton, Mississippi. Even on vacay, I'll tune in. Stephen has the best show on Locked On. Thank you, James, very much for that. Jerry Moore from Pascagoula, Mississippi. David Landrum, Louisville, Mississippi here. Winston County, my state championship my senior year. I was on the McGee Trojan team that faced the Louisville Wildcats. I'm well familiar with the Louisville Wildcats. Eddie Simmons coming to you from lovely Byram, Mississippi. Hotty toddy. GTHS. I'm assuming that means go to Hell State. Do they have to still have the swinging bridge in Byram? I am curious about that. They used to have a swinging bridge when I lived in Florence and we took the back way to South Jackson. We would go through Byram and they had a swinging bridge. So I'm interested about that as well. Joe, how's the weather up there? Y'all be careful. Wade Bell's from Marietta, Georgia. Yes. And by the way, if you are in North Mississippi, be careful with the weather and pay attention to what is going on, because there's like golf ball size hail and severe weather all over the place. In Oxford, Mississippi, and like Clarksville, Tennessee, and Bowling Green, Kentucky, they're all in kind of that funnel of death that we're all accustomed to being Southerners. Be careful about that and make sure your safe space is cleaned out. James Hall is from Brookhaven, Mississippi. Looking great. Hotty toddy. Thank you very much. A portal tight end. Is there any that's a changer? I think the tight end from Virginia Tech is a tight end to watch. I forget his name. It's one of those, I'm having a brain surgery moment, so I apologize about that. But the tight end for Virginia Tech. Jeff Ferguson going to be better than Freeze in 2015 in the top 5 in the nation. This class, transfer portal wise, they're big game hunting. And I've talked for several days about Ole Miss being able to recruit to the playoff. And that is a major deal. And this is happening. People are looking at Ole Miss and piquing on the interest on Ole Miss because they know that Ole Miss is going to go in as a playoff contender next season. The Princely Unamielen, like I said, I'm terrible with last names. I apologize for that, Princely as well. But he's interested in Ole Miss because Ole Miss is going to be good. He's not looking for a payday. He's not looking for NIL. He's looking to win. He's looking to find a place to be home. And Princely has met with Lane. I don't know if he's going to visit. I have basically a message out to that camp, and I'm talking to people down there that might could happen. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe for some reason that meeting, whenever Lane went down there, it didn't work out and all of that. But we are still waiting, and other outlets are picking up his name as well. So we'll see. Locked On Ole Miss is by far the best of the Locked Ons. Great job, SW. Thank you, Eddie, very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being everydayer. And I try to make this fun, and I try to make this different. You know, no offense towards any of the other Ole Miss podcasts out there, but they all sound the same. They all do the same thing. They're all basically real current events located. I try to do my own thing, and I think that is working for me. So thank you. ST Weasel from Boulder City, Nevada. Nice. He's got some puppy dogs in his avatar. Chances we lose Judkins, I don't know. That's all rumors at this point, and if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to sweat over a running back, no matter who that name is. Is Anthony Maddox leaning Ole Miss? Why do we need another quarterback? Okay. This one's interesting, and I'm sure that some people are talking about that. I think David Johnson might be saying that the visit's going pretty good and he's a flip candidate and all that. And everybody's going to talk about, does Ole Miss need a quarterback? Because of Walker Howard and because of Austin Simmons. Really good football players. This is what you need to remember with Anthony Maddox, who is a good quarterback in his own rights. Do not hear me say that he's not a good quarterback, okay? But his little brother, who I think is a sophomore this year, is in line to be a 5-star defensive tackle. So Anthony Maddox is going to get an offer, not based on the population of the quarterback room, even though he's a good player and he deserves to be here. So don't hear that he doesn't. But potentially having a 5-star defensive tackle brother that's a sophomore in high school, that's going to factor into the decision as well. AECP 2L. What position do you think we need to recruit the heaviest now? It's offensive line. The answer is offensive line. I think Ole Miss needs a couple of thumpers on the defensive line as well. I know this is going to sound like duh, but if Ole Miss could get Walter Nolan, the defense goes up a notch and the whole defensive line is fixed by that one move. The offensive line, you probably need 2 or 3 pieces. You need a little bit of depth on that side of the ball. Kevin O'Connor says, how about Dart? Has anyone heard what he is going to do? Dart is recruiting way too hard right now, players for 2024 to not be here. All the signs are that he's staying. Old Rebel, Fulton, Mississippi, by the way, I think that is Holmes County, if I'm not mistaken. Sam Aldred, why not recruit Burnside as a DB? Does he only want to be a wide receiver? That I do not know. But if they're recruiting him the way they're recruiting him, there's probably a reason for it. East Tennessee Mountains tuning in. This is Rob McCready. Hoping for the best with Key, Walter, and Princely. I'm very fired up about Princely because, as everybody knows, I was out on that ledge for 2 days and nobody was joining me. Nobody was joining me. And then all of a sudden, everybody's talking about that. So I'm pretty fired up about that. How deep and dangerous is D-line class going to be for the next 4 years? Not the next 4 years. There's going to be some 3 and dones in this defensive class, but 2025, okay. And if Ole Miss beats Penn State, or even if Ole Miss doesn't beat Penn State, the show I do after that is going to basically be titled "Next Year is Here." So don't hear me say wait till next year is a thing. But that class will be sophomores, and Suntarian Perkins will be a junior playing linebacker. TJ Dudley will be here. It might be a situation that Perkins plays that hybrid position, and you have a couple of thumpers in the game as well. Chris Paulub is still around. That is the year that defensive line and that front 7 has a chance to be really, really salty. We are probably about an hour's drive apart. Inverness. Okay. Okay, I think I know where that is. Okay, Sam. Will Ingram coming from Tampa, Florida. I love the hoodie. You get that off the Grove Collective website. The Grove Collective actually sent this to me. Got this to me because of the audience and all that. It's free advertising for them. And I gladly wear it because I want to support them. Hunter Beasley, hotty toddy from Concord, North Carolina. Hunter is also a member of our Discord channel. If you look at some of my tweets, there's a link to the Discord on there. Join the Discord. We talk back and forth, and whenever I know something, I throw it in there. We also have a Subtext community that's only $5 a month. I don't break much news, but when I usually do, it's there. Laverne Kendrick, enjoying your show from Brandon, Mississippi. Thank you, Laverne. Star Brandon Road. I went to McLaurin Elementary School, first grade through 6th grade. My uncle, who actually lives down here in Florida with me now, graduated from McLaurin High School with Faith Hill. So that is a cool situation there. Yes, we do. Just a scenic walk now. AEC P2L. Gross. That's gross. Absolutely gross. Actually, I'm from McGee. Okay, that's what that is. I'm from McGee. DJ, this new era we're entering in with all sports, especially football, is going to be amazing. I see a trophy in our future. I think Ole Miss is going to go all in. I think it's going to be very important to beat Penn State. It's not going to be end all. Ole Miss, it's not a situation that Ole Miss has to win that game. But the momentum they can get from winning that game and moving into next season, the difference is being ranked 18th in the preseason and ranked 5th in the preseason. That's what's at stake in the Penn State game, in my opinion. Number one transfer portal linebacker this year, number one JUCO linebacker this year, number one linebacker in the country last year. That's Boo Boo DeFoo. He's absolutely right. They have a chance to be really good. Really good. David Gibson. Listening in the cars, I'm heading to Key West for vacay. David, I'm so jealous, buddy. I am so jealous of that. Key West is one of my favorite places on the planet. And one of the things that I want to do is exactly what you're doing, and that is drive over the Highway 1 bridge over the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Ocean going to Key West. That is something I want to do, and I'm going to do basically as soon as this Locked On channel gets really set and everything. I'm just going to take a long weekend and get it done during the off season. I'm not going to do it during June because, good God. Joey Freeman's in Macomb, Mississippi. Thank you, Joey, for watching the show. My junior year in high school, we played South Pike in the South State Championship. On the way back, we got beat in that game. On the way back, there was a tornado a half a mile in front of us, and there was a tornado a half a mile behind us. And that is something I remember and I will always remember. Fulton, Mississippi, not directly recruit related, but please make whatever calls you can to ensure we have an LSU type offensive game plan versus Penn State. You know, Old Rebel is not wrong there. Not wrong there. Whenever Ole Miss mixes up the tempo of both going fast offensively, but also changing the tempo of when the ball gets out of the quarterback's hand, whether it's a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, sitting back there for a little bit like he does. Whenever that happens, the defense becomes a little bit less certain. All of a sudden, it opens up the run game, and you remember what happened against Texas A&M. You remember what happened against LSU. It can be very effective on that side of the ball. But when Ole Miss is not scared of who they're playing, and this is when Ole Miss gets in trouble, when they think they are better than who they are playing, the play calling gets predictable. It has all year. I don't know if the RPOs are all third level. I don't know what's going on. Over-reliance on the inside zone. But it gets a little bit too predictable, and teams are able to muck it up and muddy it up. And that's what happened against State. That's what happened against Tulane. That's been a lot of the problems that Ole Miss had this year is basically because of overconfidence. And I'm honestly will take that to my grave. If we mix it up and use the short pass game in the middle of the field, they cannot hang with us. If we only run between the tackles and throw deep routes, we're in trouble. Preach. James Hall says, any chance Priestcorn can get his brother to change and come to the SIP? Remember, the Priestcorns are from Michigan. Brady Priestcorn is committed to Michigan. They're playing in the national championship game. He is a Michigan fan. This is going to be the hardest of hardest pulls, but they're trying, but it is going to be the hardest of the hardest pulls. Do you know anything about the DB we got from Illinois? Enjoy your show. I know that he was recruited by Kenodo Hudson. I forgot his name wrong again. I apologize. When he was at Illinois, I know that Tahveon Nicholson is a man coverage specialist. He's going to get comfortable with you, physical with you. He is going to draw fouls. I think he's one of the more penalized defensive backs in the Big Ten. But if Ole Miss is not playing bump and run, if they're playing off and you just have that man coverage ability, that's a little bit different situation. Now, we don't know if Ole Miss is recruiting him, as we know, as a cornerback or if he's being recruited as a safety. Because John Saunders, everybody should know, he was a cornerback when he transferred in. They turned him into a safety. It all depends on how well that Tahveon Nicholson runs. If he can run pretty well, he is going to be kept at corner. If he has trouble running the ball, he's not athletic, Pete Golding's going to move him to safety. That's just what it is. Oh, Fulton, Mississippi, Itawamba County. That's where Northeast Mississippi Community College is. I knew it was somewhere. Sorry about that. Is there any O-line in the portal that we have a chance at? There's several in the portal we have a chance at. There's one visiting right now that's going to go to Florida State that we'll find out at tackle. Gershon Scott is visiting as well. Other schools, he visited last weekend. There's an offensive lineman that is coming from Notre Dame that's currently at NC State that is next visiting Ole Miss. So keep your eyes open for that as well. Eddie Simmons says, come one, come all to the SIP. Are we going to get Kewan Lacey? I'm hearing good things. If you go by the RPM and all those things, they're trending one direction, and that is for Ole Miss to get that kid. And I'm going to tell you something right now. He's good. He's legit good. He is a really good football player. And him and Kedrick Riscano and Ulysses Bentley IV and Quinshon Judkins, that has a chance to be the most stacked running back room that Ole Miss has ever had. And if any one of them, for any reason, is not in that room in the fall, I don't know if the drop-off is going to be that severe, honestly. Watson and Paul need O-line bad. For those of you who haven't joined the collective, please do so. $21 a month isn't that much, and every extra member counts. We want 20,000. David Gibson is absolutely right. If everybody remembers what I said whenever this NIL stuff first started happening, my first take, the very, very first take that I had was Ole Miss was starting Champions Now, and they started their whole stadium construction and everything. I was like, there's no way they're going to do that. They're going to reallocate the money for the players because that is more important to what they need. They did that. Then I was like, they can't keep going after these same donors. They have to figure out a different model. They have to figure out stuff like that. This $21 a month is imperative and really big for the Grove Collective, but that's going after micro money. That's going after the people that subscribe to the Spirit or Inside the Rebels or Rebel Grove. Those same people are like, hey, I can invest, instead of $30 to be invested in all three sites, I might cut that back to be on one site and spend the rest of the money in the Grove Collective. And honestly, that would be a way that you can get it done. Have you heard anything about any new coaches coming in? No. I have been really, really hard on the portal, and I don't normally break news. Everybody that watches this show knows I don't break news. That's not what I do. Timeliness and, fighting the clock and, fighting for that 5 minutes of Twitter fame, that's not really my thing. But this week I had a little bit of information about Chris Paul, and I had a little bit of information about Princely. And that was me in that way. So I don't break news all the time, but sometimes it finds me. So when it does, I will go with it a little bit. David Landrum, is there a chance to get Rocket Sanders to go with Judkins? I don't think so. I don't think Ole Miss honestly needs a 250-pound running back. ST Weasel, don't miss going into the shelter full of a billion crickets. I don't know what that is. Joseph King, speed is going to overwhelm Penn State when they have the ball on offense. Their offense is average. Yes, their defense is very good, though. So Ole Miss needs to get the first down. That is the biggest key in this football game. Get the first down. How's Bentley? He was injured during the Egg Bowl? I heard rib, and if that's the case, he should be fine by the time the bowl game flows around. LSU, MSU, and PSU, another state school, falls victim of the SIP. Brax Walker, will Trey Harris return? It looks like it. I have it on good authority that he's about 70% coming back right now. So we'll see what's up. Anyway, my mom's in town. I did want to spend a little bit of time with y'all, answer some questions, and kind of talk about what's going on and all of that. And We'll come back Monday with more of a breakdown of Tahveon Nicholson and Chris Paul and Jordan Watkins and all of that stuff. And then the kind of the what we learned episode of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. But until then, I will see you later. Take care. Hotty toddy.